When somebody sees something in augmented reality, there's a few things that happen. One, they get a lot of their questions answered, right? When you're shopping for something online, a couch, especially furniture, right? That's tough, right? You just don't know if it's going to work. But if you can see it, okay, hey, it looks good. I like that. That question's answered. So that's going to increase conversion and reduce returns, right? You know it fits. You're gonna eliminate the does it fit return problem. And that will be true in the future of clothes as well, which will be pretty awesome.
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Hello, and welcome to the Upside Podcast, the first podcast finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Eric Hornung, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Freelancing School himself, Jay Klaus. Jay, how's it going? Man, you are a business owner once again.
Oh, wow, and I didn't have to pay you for that ad.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yet.
Freelancing School. Freelancing.school. Did you know they have .school domains now, Eric?
I did not. Do they have .side domains? Because that'd be cool to have up.side.
I don't think they do, but there's probably a .de for some country like Denmark, so we could get upside.de.
I think that's actually Germany, Deutschland.
Could be. I could see that being also true. But yeah, Freelancing School, my new project that I've been spending way too long on, probably 6 to 8 months, teaching people how to make a living freelancing.
What makes you qualified to do that?
Well, I've been doing it for the last 3 years, and I've been working with over 100 people who are also doing it. So it actually came from a course that I did for LinkedIn last year. I took that content and I fleshed it out even more. It's probably 3 times the amount of content divided into 3 courses: selling for freelancers, business for freelancers, and marketing for freelancers. And yeah, I think it's probably the best work I've ever done. Besides the podcast, of course, Eric.
Besides this podcast, this is the best work you've ever done. Unless you buy Freelancing School, and then this podcast is second. Look at us, just plugging away here. I get a percent of this. I don't, but it would be nice. Jay, do I get a percent of this?
I can make you an affiliate, but you would have to go sell it yourself.
Upside doesn't count?
No.
Well, in that case, I am out.
Well, speaking of buying things online, today we are talking with Jon Cheney, the founder and CEO of Seek. Seek is augmented reality on the web for e-commerce. They have a cross-platform web-based augmented reality, which allows a consumer to visualize a product in their life before they buy it.
Do you think that when augmented reality becomes available enough, you would augment reality yourself into a classroom and teach Freelancing School in a virtual space?
I don't know. It depends on the tool set of how I would be able to do that. Online education is a really interesting subject we could talk about at length because there's a lot of different ways to do it, and a lot of it is ineffective. I mean, frankly, online courses, the completion rate is like 4%. Difficult. A lot of people buy online courses and don't finish. Now, I would argue it's because the majority of online education is done through platforms like Khan Academy or Udemy or Skillshare, where they really commoditize its information and the learner is not that invested in the course, literally financially. And so it's easy to not do things when it's hard and when you're not invested in getting it done.
Do you think engagement rates would be higher if there was a Jay in my living room just teaching me?
For sure. I think engagement rates would be higher if there's a Jay in every household teaching everyone.
A Jay for every living room.
A Jay for every household. A little more on Seek. They were founded in 2016. They're based in Lehi, Utah, our first company in Utah, Eric. They've received about $2 million in funding to this point, and they've worked with some big names.
Some of the largest names in e-commerce, some massive brands. I'm excited to see what this is really all about because they've been around for a while. Seems like there's a lot of pivots. It seems like there's going to be a big up and down story here.
And as we go through that story, folks, if you have thoughts, you can tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. But without further ado, we'll get into that interview with Jon. Jon, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Good to be here.
On Upside, we like to start with a background of the founder. So can you tell us about the history of Jon?
Yeah, definitely. So originally from Houston, Texas, now currently close by Lehi, Utah. but grew up in Texas really, and then actually moved down to South America for a few years, and ended up here in Utah when I went to college. Ended up graduating from BYU in Chinese and business. Kind of always been into entrepreneurship, and thought I could do some good things with the Chinese language as well, as that's obviously a big market that's been in the news a lot lately. Anyway, long story short, ended up joining a couple tech companies after short out of college, and then here I am having started my own. I'm also married, have 4 kids, and that's me.
Where did you go in South America?
We were down in Paraguay.
Paraguay.
Yeah, lived there when I was a teenager.
And what brought you there? Was that like was your dad like an army brat, or were you an army brat, or?
Yeah, no, I was a lot nicer than that. No, my dad was a mission president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So he supervised about 180 missionaries down there, and me and my 4 sisters and our whole family got to live down there during that time.
That's fascinating to me. I would love to hear how entrepreneurship entered your worldview with that type of upbringing.
Yeah, my dad, from an early age, always encouraged us to find opportunities to, make a difference. And he said one thing that always stuck with me, which was, you're never going to get ahead in life if you're working for somebody else. You have to have control over your own earning potential. And that didn't mean that he didn't want me to ever go work for another company, but it pushed me towards kind of the sales end of things, where if I work harder, I'm gonna, I'm going to kill more, I'm going to eat more, right? I mean, that's really what it came down to. And so, I mean, when I was 8 years old, living down in Houston during the winter, the trees kind of all, lose all their leaves, except for there's big bunches of mistletoe that are just kind of way up high. So you have to climb up, and you just use a little saw and chop them down. And so I'd go and do that and cut them up into little pieces that would look good in your living room, put them in Ziploc bags, and then walk around door to door and sell them as an 8-year-old, right? With my little sister, 6-year-old, tagging along, and we'd sell them for $5 and make a few $100s during the Christmas season. And so I've always just kind of been an entrepreneur, and, having experiences like being able to, move to Paraguay, see another culture, become fluent in Spanish. I later had an opportunity. I served a mission myself, and actually in Taiwan for a couple of years, and learned Chinese. And so being able to see lots of the world and really understand that there's a lot more to what we see in our kind of little bubble here in the US, made me realize that there's a lot of opportunity to do good in the world, and entrepreneurship is the way that I see I can make a big difference.
You said that your dad said that you're never going to get ahead working for someone else. When you graduated college, did you go work for someone else, or did you go right into starting your own thing?
Yeah, good question. So while I was in college, I actually ran a couple small businesses, kind of more, call them side hustles, I guess. I ran a kayak school, and I was a DJ when I could, and did just little things where I could make money, right? While I was in college, I did the entrepreneurship program there at BYU as well, and I heard from 3 or 4 founders of very successful companies in the area come in and say, look, just go work for somebody else. If you want to start a business, go work for somebody else, see what it looks like, see how it works, see what you like, see what you don't like, right? If you just kind of go and try to start it from nothing, you don't really have a base. You don't know what you're trying to do. And just little things like how to send an invoice, learning how a business works really helps. And so I decided to do that. When I graduated from college, I had this Chinese in business. I actually got on, at the time, Craigslist, and I just typed in, Chinese, jobs or whatever, right? And a little company out of Provo that had been founded out of BYU popped up called Zinch. And it was a startup out of BYU that right after I joined got acquired by a larger company out of Santa Clara, California, called Chegg. Big acquisition there. And then a couple of years after I joined Chegg IPO'd. And so I got to, through that experience, be part of an acquisition, and then part of an IPO, and what that meant for me, how it changed my life as somebody way down the totem pole, right? And so yeah, I think that having those experiences, and it was right after those experiences that I went off and started into the entrepreneur world, where I was really doing my own startups. But I think that I learned a lot of very valuable lessons that I'm using today from that experience.
So I want to dive into Chegg in a second, but first, the more important question: you were a DJ. Tell me, what kind of music were you DJing? Were you like deep Russian house, or is this like party music?
Probably more party music. Yeah, no, none of the crazy deep beats. I don't think I'm cultured enough for that or something. I'm a musician, actually. I've been a pianist for years. You could look me up on iTunes, and and enjoy some good piano music. But I've always loved music, and it's really fun to buy some big speakers and turn the volume up loud and have someone pay you for it.
What's your go-to song if you're gonna like work a playlist? Like, what's the one that you're like, all right, this is gonna get the people going?
Cotton Eye Joe, man. Everyone goes nuts for that.
That's such a Midwestern answer. I wasn't expecting that.
For sure. No, there's all kinds of good songs, but I don't know. People seem to love the line.
So, Jon, you're sitting in Lehi, Utah, and you joined Zincher, acquired by Chegg. What does the startup scene in Lehi or in Utah broadly look like at that time?
Yeah, 6 or 7 years ago when I first kind of joined the workforce and in the startup world, it was definitely kind of cranking, right? You had Adobe had just moved in here due to the big Omniture acquisition, which was about $2 billion. And so, Josh James had a big win there, and he's now founded Domo, which is, making all sorts of, waves here and is definitely one of the big companies around. But just this year, I mean, in the last year and a half, there have been, Pluralsight IPO and Qualtrics acquisition by SAP for $8 billion. And, when things like that happen, $8 billion is a big number. that changes, the cities that, there's so many people. And I think we haven't even begun to see the effects of that really, right? I mean, you're going to have all those people that, take that cash and then say, hey, I can do it too. And they're going to go start their own companies. But I mean, I was just saying, from 5 minutes from here, there are 6 or 7 unicorns. There's a company down the road called DiviPay that officially started about a year and a half ago. They were kind of, in a basement before that, but they've raised about $500 or $600 million since they started last year. And there's just stories like that left and right. Now, I was just saying we work in a space here called Kiln, which is a co-working space, a WeWork competitor type thing. And there's about 50 companies in here. And every day it's, hey, we raised $3 million. We landed Walmart as a client. We did this. And, it's really fun to see, all these different companies popping up and having a lot of success, kind of feeding off each other.
Where's all that money coming from? I've heard that Salt Lake City and Provo, and that's like where venture capitalists go to vacation. So that's like a rumor that I've heard. Is that true? Is this Silicon Valley money kind of pouring in, or is this self-contained within Utah and feeding back into itself?
Yeah, that's a topic of discussion that I'm very passionate about. I would love to see the Utah homegrown VC world really grow more. Most of the money, like you talk about Qualtrics actually was bootstrapped for a very long time. They made the decision to stay in a basement until they had 400 clients, which was just amazing. Huge respect for them. And they spurned advances from these VCs from all over the world for a long time. And then finally, a couple little companies called Sequoia and Excel talked them into, taking some money, right? And then Insight Venture Partners jumped in, and then they sold for $8 billion. And so all that money went to Insight and Excel and went to nobody here, right? And I would have loved to see, some of the there's some decent sized VCs here. Don't get me wrong. There's some great companies. Peterson Ventures, amazing. Peterson Capital, you've got Peak, you've got Kickstart, you've got a lot of really good groups around here. But I feel like the big wins are going to the outside capital. Utah's a very well kept secret, but the people that know what they're doing know what's up, know what's going on here.
So when did you decide, okay, I feel like I have a base, I feel like I know what I'm doing, I'm going to now take my father's advice and be my own boss?
It really actually, so when I left Chegg, so Chegg is, an education company, tech company, and I was offered an opportunity to become vice president of an early stage startup. I had about 5 or 6 employees in the education tech space. And I had, a huge Rolodex, from Chegg, and that was awesome. I could call up pretty much any university in the country and say, hey, we've got something cool for you. Let's talk. And so I helped build that up. It was a company called English 3, and we sold language software. And so it made sense for me, right? I speak Spanish and Chinese, and we're selling English language software to international students coming in. So it was a good fit for me. I thought it was a good opportunity. The CEO of that company was in private equity, and he had about 5 or 6 portfolio companies that he was fully engaged with. And so, aside from a call or two a week, I was kind of on my own to figure out how to make this thing run. And it was a great learning experience, right? I was given a lot of free reign and was able to try things that worked and try things that didn't work, and learned a lot. Ultimately, we came to a point at that company where I believed we needed to raise capital in order to grow at a much faster rate. I was saying it's going to take 20 years to get to anywhere substantial. And the CEO just said, "Hey, you know what? I don't really want to give up any more equity. Let's just grow it." And I said, "That's fine." And I think maybe I'm going to go do my own thing. And so I had gained this amazing experience of about 3 years building a company, not completely on my own. It was kind of already there. They had the idea. I just helped build the product and the market, and that was great. So I kind of had this stepping stone. And then at that time, quite frankly, I was bored of the education market. It was really, really slow moving. If you've ever sold to the education, just think about this: walk into Harvard and try to convince them that they're doing something wrong, right? Or that there's a way they can do something better. It's really, really difficult. And so, long story short, I stepped away and started Seek, and that's a pretty fun story that I can share as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested just to hear. I mean, we talked about in the intro, Seek as an augmented reality for e-commerce play seems miles away from education. So tell us about where that inspiration came from.
Yeah, if you think that an English company is miles away from that, it's even further away from what actually happened. So, like I said earlier, I'm a big outdoor guy. I'm a whitewater kayaker. While I was in college and shortly after, I was a sponsored whitewater kayaker, doing the waterfalls and all those big things, and really, really love the outdoors. Love to hike, mountain bike, golf, anything I can do to be outside is just prima. That's where I want to be. So I turned to one of my college roommates and said, "Hey, let's do something fun." Right? He had worked with me some at English 3, some at JAG, and so Mike Snow, he's my co-founder. And I said, let's do something in the outdoors, right? And so we looked around and we saw this kind of trend of all these event companies like Color Runs and the Dirty Dash and Mud Runs, and you pay 30, 40, $50 to go have some fun experience for a day. And we thought, hey, let's do that. But we said, let's put on treasure hunts. So that's where we went. We started a company called Treasure Canyon. And that started basically January 1 of 2016. It was New Year's Day, and I had this, New Year's resolution to create more. That was what I wanted to do. I said, you know what? I'm just going to do more. And that day, I said, all right, we're doing the treasure hunt. I jumped on, some website and paid $89 for an LLC, and all the documents. And Treasure Canyon was a real company. And so about 3 weeks later, on January 21st, we did our first treasure hunt. And all we did was we went to a local canyon here called Provo Canyon, beautiful waterfall in there called Bridalveil Falls. We had gone to the bank and we got this really cool looking jar, kind of a mason jar, but with some extra things that made it look a little bit older. And we got 100 of those, Susan B. Anthony's, dollar coins. And we put it in there and we hid it up in this little place. And we had for the previous week been putting on, inviting all our friends to like our Facebook page, Treasure Canyon. And we've been putting clues up. Hey, there's going to be some treasure in the canyon. We'll release the final clue on Saturday. So we did that. It took about 30 minutes there was a bunch of people that showed up, and it was probably about 20 people, and so that was fun. But a dad and his 2 sons won it. They found the treasure, and I came and took a video of it, and it was awesome. And seeing the adventure and the experience, the bonding that we had created for that dad and his kids was just very satisfying to me. I was really, really excited that, hey, this could be something. Let's make it bigger. What if the prize wasn't $100? What if it was $10,000, right? And so we set off. And by the way, that dad eventually was an employee of Seek. He's moved on to Florida now, but it's very, very cool story there that we could tell another time. So the next month we said, let's do $200, then let's do $500, then $1,000. And by September of that year, it's about 9 months, we did a $10,000 treasure hunt, and we had Gatorade as a sponsor, Ultra shoes, Goal Zero, all kinds of adventure companies. We had about 10, pretty good sized sponsors of that event, and had hundreds of people showing up paying, $50 for this event, and everyone ran off, and a team eventually won that treasure. So really, really cool. We started doing some corporate events as well. But my co-founder and I sat back and we said, okay, this is really cool. We're getting requests to do this in Vegas and Denver and everywhere else, and it's not really scalable, right? It's really hard. We'd go to some antique store or find something on Amazon. We'd buy a treasure chest. We'd fill it with stuff. We'd literally take that and lug it up into the mountains and hide it, build the clues, and just like, man, super fun. We were in great shape because we were climbing all these mountains, right? But we knew that we couldn't really scale that to, I mean, yeah, we could make a lifestyle business. We could turn it into a couple $1 million, that's fine. But both of us, had bigger sights in mind. We said, hey, how do we do the $100 million deal? How do we do something that, can blow it out of the park there? And so we said, let's make an app. Let's make it digital. So we can just push a button and place a digital treasure. And not too long after that happened, a phenomenon known as Pokemon Go came to the world. And I looked at that. I wasn't ever really a Pokemon fan, but I saw this just craze. And I knew that Pokemon drove some of it. But what really got me interested was the augmented reality piece. I said, I think people love this, not just because the nostalgia of Pokemon Go, but because you've got this technology that people have never seen before where you're interacting with the world in a new way. And I said, let's do that. Let's show treasure chests and augmented reality. You go to a place and find it, still have to follow clues and things like that. So we did that. We launched an app called, the app originally was called Seek Rewards Through Adventure. And so basically you would open up the app and there was a map there, just like Pokemon Go, and you could walk around your neighborhood and there were treasure chests in your neighborhood. There were better treasure chests up in the mountains and at parks and on trails and things like that. And it was kind of a game of chance. You'd open the treasure chest and you could win a gift card to McDonald's or a Samsung phone or a Universal Pictures, a movie ticket or something like that, right? And we started, some of those brands were some of our clients, right? We started getting some big clients that were saying, hey, we want to use Pokemon Go, right? We want to do our own version of this. And I mean, we were signing $200,000 contracts to do advertising, augmented reality advertising. And we're like, hey, we've got a company here, right? This is awesome. We recruited a great tech team. Neither me nor my co-founder are developers. And so we had to go find and recruit that talent. We found some great people to join and we were off to the races. So we went and raised a little bit of money. And that's what got us into augmented reality. And then we've pivoted quite a bit to get to where we are now. But that's how it started, all from $100, hidden by a waterfall.
What were these $200,000 type contracts in the treasure seeking context? What was that like? Like, what were they expecting as a return to that?
So every single time the user would open up a treasure chest, you could actually tap on a treasure chest and see inside of it what were all the potential prizes, right? So you might see, oh, okay, there's a Lyft gift card, or there's a Best Buy gift card, or there's a Samsung phone, or hey, there's a trip for 4 to Disneyland, right? And so every single time someone tapped on a treasure chest to open it up, they see all these cool prizes here that were options of things that they could win. And that's a brand impression, right? And so when we had hundreds of thousands of users using this in over 115 countries, yeah, that's valuable to Samsung. And so we could produce millions of impressions for them by having people going around and looking for these, ultimately only one person, or maybe, Samsung actually provided about 400 prizes, Gear VRs and about 20 phones and all kinds of cool stuff. And so we let lots of people were winning prizes, and then they would post about it on social media. That helps it grow. But ultimately, these brands were saying, hey, we want to do something really cool. We want to use augmented reality. And this is a way that we can get, traditional impressions out there in a cool new way.
How do you plant these discoverable augmented reality like flags or checkpoints all over the world from one place? How do you plant that in a very specific place, or do you kind of generally place it in this area and it lands somewhere geographically?
Yeah, so we had the ability to, that's a good question. It's actually a pretty fun development. Originally we had to go in and get on Google Maps, and we'd grab a GPS coordinate and we'd have to go into our back end and copy paste manually into there. And then we said, hey, can you build us, talking to our tech team, hey, can you build us a map interface where we can just, push a button and place it? And so they built that out. And eventually now we have a huge dashboard that, just does things almost automatically. Then we got to the point where we wanted people, there's a lot of people in the world and it's a big place, right? And so what we didn't want to happen, there were a couple other treasure hunting apps that were they weren't augmented reality, but they were supposed to be kind of like, location-based geocaching type things, right? But a lot of people complained, we saw in reviews, that they would open it up and they're in the middle of Kansas somewhere and there's no treasure around them, so they can't play it. It only worked in big metropolitan areas that they'd, taken care of. And so we created a feature where as somebody signed up, we pinged their location and automatically dropped the chest right on top of them so that they would be able to immediately have something cool to do. And beyond that, they could then say, hey, request a treasure chest in this area, right? So they could say, hey, you know what, there's a park here, and then we would receive a request, we'd manually review it, and then go in and put those things there. So that was fine, but still very, very manual. So then we said, okay, how can we make this even better? So then we decided, our tech team, which is just absolutely off the charts brilliant, that's taken us to where we are today, created an algorithm that could detect parks all over the world, or universities, or residential streets, or hiking trails, things like that. So they could identify different landmarks and then randomly generate chests in those areas, right? So it looked like it was random and manually placed, but we currently have about 72 million places in the world where you can open a treasure chest, right? And this app, by the way, you can't even download it anymore. We've sunsetted the app; it's gone, but we potentially have somebody that's going to buy it and might bring it back to life.
So you're making all this money. You get these $200,000 contracts. Everything sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Why sunset the app?
Yeah. So we did that a couple years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Pokemon Go drove a lot of our sales, the craze around that. This was a brand new thing, very cutting edge, definitely coming out of those experimental budgets that these brands have, which a lot of brands don't have, right? You talk to small businesses around, they just don't have that kind of money. Yeah, the Samsungs and the Universal Pictures and big companies that have, $100 million marketing budgets or $1 billion marketing budgets. Yeah, they can afford to throw 200 grand at some new experimental thing and try it out. But long story short, we were just a little too cutting edge. And as Pokemon Go died, we went right with it, right? And interest from advertisers, the users loved it. That was the thing that was really tough. Is we had this very passionate user group. The US and the UK were just absolutely on fire. And quite frankly, as we've thought back on it, we probably could have made it work with a very engaged fan base like that and a growing audience. We could sell that to somebody, to the right people, and just keep cranking over time. But what happened was our clients kind of, and this was maybe a mistake, maybe not. I mean, I'm really happy that we got to where we are now, which we'll get to, but we kind of let our clients drive the ship. They said, Samsung came back to us and said, hey, I've got another 200 grand, but can we do something a little different? We said, absolutely. But they said, hey, we don't want people to have to get up and walk around and to find this cool augmented reality content. Can we create something that's maybe a little more engaging, but that they can do anywhere? They can do it in their home, their office, whatever, and share it and make it fun. And we said, sure. This is before, or kind of right as, Snapchat was just starting to do some augmented reality ads. And it was very new, very expensive, and very limiting. Snapchat, you'd pay 500 grand for an augmented reality ad, and it would last 2 days, and then it's gone, right? And so that didn't make sense. So we had this idea, hey, there's really not a platform out there like YouTube, but for AR, where a brand could have a channel, publish AR content, gain followers, shares, likes, things like that. Kind of a social network with, a content-driven social network around augmented reality. And our company went away on a retreat for a few days just to kind of talk about what should we do. And we came up with this idea for the YouTube of AR. And we all said, man, that is a big idea. If we can pull that off, we will be so rich, we will be so wealthy, and this will just be awesome. And so we said, all right, let's do it. But we made the decision we didn't want to alienate our existing users, but we wanted to add all these new features. So we said, all right, we've got the map. Let's just create some new tabs. We'll create a news feed and then a discover tab and these things, right? And so we had to literally start over from scratch, because what we were doing now required a lot more visual effects that weren't as easy to do outside of Unity. And so we said, all right, we need to build a Unity app that's going to be cross-platform. It's going to work and allow us to do a lot more on the visual and kind of gaming side of things, which augmented reality pushed towards. So we got busy. We raised another $500,000 and cranked it out in about 6 months. And in December of 17, I think, we launched SeekXR. And SeekXR you can still download today, on iOS at least. We don't have it on Android right now, but it's still actually the largest collection of interactive AR content. Really fun. You can go in there and play a Star Wars game where you're shooting, spaceships all around with Star Wars music, and you can see dragons flying around, and you can interact with different things from movies, of contracts that we had. And we started selling contracts again. Right? Hey, we're back in business. This worked. It was awesome. About 6 months go by, and actually, let's say about 4 months go by, and all of the initial hype that we had around it. It's really easy to hype something before it exists, right? Oh, we're going to be the YouTube of AR, and we're going to have 10 million users by next summer. And if you don't deliver on that hype, then all the advertisers say, hey, I can't, if you only have 100,000 users, I can't put money there. I got to put it into Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and these other places that are killing it, right? What we realized is that they're just like today, if you just go out on the street and you say, hey, average Joe, what's augmented reality? They don't know. They can't tell you, right? So if they don't even know what it is, that means they're definitely not looking for it, right? There just weren't enough people searching for augmented reality content, and we realized that was a problem, right? And there was another issue. We said, hey, you know what? Augmented reality content is really, really hard to create, right? Instagram's easy because creating content is just pick up your phone, take a picture, and boom, you're done. Same with YouTube. You can take a video, and there's 1,000 video editing apps on your phone, and it's easy to download Premiere. And the people are tech savvy enough now that making a video is an easy thing. But augmented reality is very difficult. You need 3D modeling and physics, and usually game engines, and most of the time you need to know how to code. So we wanted to fix that problem. So we set out and we created a kind of an add-on product called Seek Studio that would allow an average user to use templates that we created for them to create augmented reality content. And so we made it possible within minutes to jump on, create an AR fireworks show or something. You pick your song, and then you kind of get to choose, when the fireworks go off and what color they are and what style they are, and then you could publish it, and it would take just a few minutes, and people could create really cool things. And so that worked well, and got a little bit of press and was exciting, but still there just weren't enough people looking for augmented reality. So then we ran into a cash crunch, right? Now we hadn't delivered on the huge vision. We realized a fundamental flaw in our business, which was there just aren't enough, there's not a big enough audience for this to really be worth a lot right now. Maybe in 5 years, enough people will get it. Apple glasses will be out, things like that. Augmented reality will be a part of everyday life. And so maybe the YouTube of AR could exist, and maybe Seek does that. Maybe it's somebody else, but we needed a business plan that was going to actually make money, right? And that's where our final pivot to where we've gotten now. And now we're just taking off big time. But in building the YouTube of AR, there were a lot of things that we had to solve, a lot of problems we had to solve. One was cross-platform, right? We know that if a brand spends a lot of money or time to create content and they publish it to Seek, it's got to work on iOS and Android. And we already knew at the time that Apple glasses were going to be a thing. And you've got Magic Leap raising $2 billion plus. You've got all these kind of AR goggles and VR goggles and things, and we wanted to make it easy for a brand to publish something once and then have it work cross-platform. So we created a lot of really cool deployment technology for that. It also had to be easy to create content, had to be easy to manage content. We had created that with Seek Studio. The one thing that we also knew was it's really, really hard to get people to download an app, right? If you look at the stats, it's actually pretty interesting. 51% of people download an average of 0 apps per month.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's me. I get that.
Yeah.
That is the complete opposite of me. I'm always trying apps.
I know. I have 1,000 apps on my phone, man. I'm just always like, ooh, that was cool. And then, yeah. But that's a pretty big stat. And if you go up, when you get all the way up to 75%, still people are downloading less than 3 apps a month. And so getting them to download anything is just really, really difficult. And so we had talked about it, and we knew that the web was getting more powerful, but web-based AR is where we knew we wanted to get to. And as we kind of ran into this cash crunch, I mean, we had 25 employees. We had a $70,000 payroll every 2 weeks. And we had $6,000 left. We were out. It was done, right? And so we went to our investors and our employees, and we said, all right, guys, let's dig deep here. What do we do? How do we make this happen? How do we survive? Right? How do we not disappoint our investors? What does the market want that we have? And my CTO came to me and said, we all thought about it. He just came in one day and just said, hey, Jon, I've got an idea. I think our technology is good enough now that we can do web-based AR for e-commerce, right? To let brands show a couch or a shoe or whatever it is they're selling in AR on the web without an app. And I said, nah, that's not exciting. I don't want to do that. And he's like, all right, whatever. So I just was thinking about it a couple more hours. Later that afternoon, I was like, Thane, get back in here. Let's talk about that some more. Tell me about this. What does this mean? Can you show me an example? And he's like, I can't show you an example yet, but give me some time. Let me do it. He whipped it out in a day. And I was like, I can sell that. So we went to our employees. We said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sunset the first app. Because at this point, we're a startup. We have no money left. We have 3 products. Seek Rewards, it's location-based, Seek XR, the YouTube of AR, and we considered Seek Studio to be its own product. So that required Facebook posting and emails and different users. I mean, it required so much work. And so we went to our employees and said, all right, guys, about 13 of you, we got to let go. Right. And, so we let them go. The rest of them, we said, hey, are you willing to stay around and not get paid? And everyone said, yes, everybody, 100%.
And was that mostly like the technical team that kind of stuck around?
Yeah, we needed the development team. We needed our VP of marketing because we had to keep some semblance of a company, image going. And then I'm the primary sales guy. My COO and co-founder helps with that as well. And so that was it. Yeah, we had about 7 tech guys, and then we had our VP of marketing, a couple of us, and that was it. And so for about 6 weeks, we went forward. We had about 12 people, and eventually we had to cut that down to 5 people on the payroll, right? And the rest of the people stayed, hoping that we would get enough money to do it. And so because we went to our investors and they said, look, guys, you've blown through this money. And it's not like we were going and buying, diamond crusted ping pong tables, but had we been more experienced with using capital, we would have seen this coming before we had $6,000. We would have said, oh, we only have $200,000, and that's only 3 months or 2 months out of 140, 150,000 a month. We got to cut now, and we should have, right? In hindsight, it's easy to learn those things, but we had to learn those lessons. And long story short, we got the investors to agree to provide about $20,000 a month to keep going forward. And so we had to figure out how to fit everything that we needed into that $20,000 a month. So we canceled everything. Our landlord, one of the companies that went public, Pluralsight, we were subleasing from them a $15,000 a month space. And we just told them, hey guys, we're out of money. We'll pay you soon. We're trying to raise some money. And they're like, okay. 5 months went by, $75,000 of rent, debt accrued and owed. And they finally said, all right, guys, we got to let you go. But we were in your position at one point. Pay us when you can, if you can.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good of them, especially if you said they IPO or they got acquired.
Yeah, IPO.
Okay, so they still have some of their own control. They can make that decision. It wasn't like
Exactly. So yeah, no, it was awesome. They're going to get a high five from me when we sell, and a $75,000 check plus interest and a steak dinner. But the point is, they were really, really cool about it. But we were out, right? And so we found a place that was just $3,000 a month and jumped in and said, all right, guys, let's heads down. Let's make this happen. All of our salaries were just bare minimum, enough to not, die.
What time frame is this?
This was actually a little over a year ago. Yeah. So we did that. So now we had a new product, right? We called this product SeekView. We decided to just be ultra focused. And this was the first time where our other products were both consumer facing products. And so we had 2-sided market problems. We had to get users and get advertisers, right? And that's very expensive and time consuming to do. And really probably would have required more like $30 million to successfully do. We had only raised up to that point, I guess we had raised about 1.5 million, maybe 1.4 or so, all from angels around the area. But we built this product and we said, okay, September 15th of last year was the launch date, because there was a conference called shop.org, just a big e-commerce conference in Vegas. And we said, hey, we're going to go out to this and we're going to officially launch it there. So we go there and people just flocked to us. It was awesome. Huge brands, everybody coming out. We went away with about 45 really solid leads, and about 20 of those are our clients today.
What's the value of like one of those leads or clients?
So you take someone like Vans Corporation, right? They're initially about 120,000 a year, but they're part of the VF Corporation, which owns, Wranglers and all kinds of other huge brands out there, North Face, and so when you look at the value of what their entire organization, as we roll out fully, it'll be worth millions of dollars to us a year. But the total value of all of those clients on an annual basis was $500,000, right? But now we were in a new game, B2B SaaS, recurring revenue. We were out of the project-based game, right? Which is what everything else was. Samsung's like, here's $200,000, do something cool. Here's 200,000, do something cool. Lionsgate comes along. Here's $100,000, do something. But as soon as that project's done, it's like, okay, well, we have to start selling again. With these guys, we install this on their website, it becomes a core feature, and it just rolls every month, right? So since then, we have landed now. Our clients are, some of the ones I mentioned, Vans, Nestle, Overstock. Overstock is our largest customer and is the largest augmented reality installation in the world. You got, Bosch and Crutchfield, which is a big Best Buy competitor. We have clients in Spain, in the UK, and Amsterdam. We have 5 or 6. We went to a conference in Australia last month, and we've already landed 6 deals from that. And we are growing very, very fast, about 30% per month since September of last year. And we've raised some additional capital. We're now raising a Series A to really blow it up now.
What is the selling proposition? Like, what does these brands that come to you, what are they expecting the user to feel or do differently after seeing this in their home? And maybe you could explain visually for the listener what this product kind of looks like in the user's hand.
Definitely. So the big difference here, augmented reality, I'll back up just a little bit and explain this. Augmented reality has been used by IKEA, Wayfair, Amazon, L'Oreal. There's a lot of big brands have launched augmented reality within their app in the last couple of years. And a lot of studies came out and said, hey, augmented reality has a pretty big impact, right? 30% increase in sales conversion. That's a huge number, right? Some stats that we saw said 80% increase. Some said 120% increase. We're measuring 150% increase with some of our large retailers. That's part of why we decided to get in this business, is because when my CTO came to me and showed me this, he said, hey, we can do this. I started, researching it a bunch. I said, actually, that is a very provable ROI, right? If you can A/B test and show this makes 150% or a 30%, heck, a 10% increase, I can sell this all day long and renew it all day long because the numbers are there, right? They're making more money. We're adding more to the top line. The experience is simple. With what we do, with someone like IKEA, if you found something that was viewable in AR, without us, and even today, right? You go on their website, or you go on Google and you land on IKEA and it says view in AR. It says, okay, download our app and then go, create an account and then find this product again and then learn how to use our custom AR, whatever. It's too complicated, right? With us, and I know that some of you are listening here, but I'm going to demo it right here just so that we can see it on screen a little bit. But basically, you go to the website, right? I'm just on, overstock.com as this example here, and you can try it for listeners at home. Just go to overstock.com, click on anything, click on any category, and then head down the list until you see a little 3D symbol. When you find that 3D symbol, you can click on the product, and then inside of that there will be a little button that says 3D interactive viewer, just kind of right in the middle of the picture, right? It's impossible to miss. And if you click on that, then it's going to open up a 3D view of that object, right? So this is a couch, a sectional that I'm showing here and playing with, right? So I can zoom in on it, I can look at it, and that's cool. But then I can actually point this at the ground and click this AR button here, and it's kind of measuring the ground and trying to find a place to put it. Now I just put this huge couch. I'm actually going to shrink it down. But it puts this huge item here in the space, and you can look at it right here. This was a bad product to use for this demo. But again, the listeners can't tell. Just go to the Overstock.
I think a couch looks really good in your office, man. I think you definitely need one. Yeah,
we do need one. We wouldn't be able to walk through it, but anyway. So that's the process, right? It all happens. You can be on Chrome, on Android, on Safari, and you just tap it and open it up, and boom, it's right there in front of you. And the object is true to size. So you can actually say, hey, does this fit? Does it not fit? Does it go with my decorations? Does it work? And so furniture is a very, very obvious use case. Someone like Vans, being able to see the shoe and turn it around and almost be able to hold it, right, is very valuable. Where it will get even more valuable with someone like Vans is as we roll out try-on, right, a virtual try-on, so that you can actually say, hey, what does this look like? And again, everything we're doing, we want to be web-based. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to do anything other than click on it, do it, tap on it, and you're out, right? And then as soon as you click X out of the viewer, it takes you, you never left the web page, you add it to cart. And so it's no different a journey for the buyer than clicking on a picture or a video already is. And so that becomes something that's really, really easy. It doesn't interrupt the buyer's journey. But when somebody sees something in augmented reality, there's a few things that happen. One, they get a lot of their questions answered, right? When you're shopping for something online, a couch, especially furniture, right? That's tough, right? You just don't know if it's going to work. But if you can see it, okay, hey, it looks good. I like that. That question's answered. So that's going to increase conversion and reduce returns, right? It fits. You're gonna eliminate the does it fit return problem, and that will be true in the future of clothes as well, which will be pretty awesome. Another thing happens psychologically when you see something in your space, you start to want it more, right? It starts to become yours. You get that sense of ownership because you see this. Even we have companies that are supplement companies, and so all we're doing is looking at a bag of protein powder, right, sitting on the desk here. But hey, now that bag of protein powder is sitting here on my desk, and even though they don't care if it fits on the desk, it still increases conversion because there's that added benefit of, hey, I've got all my questions answered. I can flip it around. I can look at the nutritional facts in a way almost as if I was in the store. I can look at those details really well and make that happen. So there's a lot of very pronounced benefits to the retailer, mostly around consumer confidence and trust in their product and in their process.
Is this kind of now a land grab? Like, are there a lot of competitors in this space trying to do the same thing, and it's just a race to get your software on this retailer site before the next supplier?
So yes and no. There are some other companies out there that are trying to do this, of course, which we love, right? I've learned that competition is good. First of all, it makes us look dang good because our solution is the best. We are kind of top of the line, and that's why we've been able to land some of the clients I'm talking about here. But yeah, it's definitely a land grab, right? What we're doing is there's some proprietary things, but there's a lot of things that can be done differently in ways to make this happen. The cool thing is, though, it's a fairly integrated product, and so it's not something that will be easy to switch to one of our competitors, right? There's not just the technology that we saw on the website, but there's the management of the 3D assets and the creation of the 3D assets, and being able to manage them cross-platform. We're the only ones that can do it completely web-based on Android and iOS and Magic Leap. And we have a partnership with Google that I could talk about. It's pretty cool. And lots of really, we kind of bring all the premium features. We actually had Insight Venture Partners come out to us in January of this year, really, really early in this product cycle before we had a lot of these really big clients. We had, the successful conference, but we were just landing those deals and none of them were really live yet. But they said, if you're going to win, it's going to be the way that Twitch did it. Right. And I said, Twitch? We're not Twitch. What does that mean? She said, look, Twitch wasn't anything special. They're a streaming company. Right. And when you think of video streaming, who do you think of first? YouTube. Right. I mean, YouTube owns that space. How on earth did Twitch come in and beat YouTube out on this? Right. Turns out that the streaming piece was good. And there's probably 100 companies that could do the streaming just as well as Twitch does. But what Twitch did is they built tools all around the core product that were just perfect for their niche, right? If you're a gamer and you go on Twitch, you have every tool you need, all the add-ons, all the things to let people donate to you and comment to you and engage with you and make the experience just feel nice for a gamer. That's why Twitch won. Twitch provided all the extras that made it the complete package, and now they're billions of dollars, right? Which is awesome. And so we've kept that advice in our mind. And so Seek Studio, which I mentioned before, is now, we've sunsetted it for the consumer side of things, and it's now Seek Studio Enterprise, right? And it does so many incredible things. And so companies like Lego or Overstock or actually Walmart that are coming to us are choosing us over some of our competitors that are out there because of the tools that we've built around it. We have really that full solution.
So say Upside wants to hire Seek we want to do our whole digital asset thing. We want to come on as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we have 100 SKUs of swag, but we don't have any 3D models. We don't have any augmented reality capacity at all. What does startup and integration look like in terms of steps and time for a customer to get onboarded to the point that consumers can do exactly what you just did with Overstock? looking at, trying it, fitting it?
Yeah, good question. So that is actually a fairly big issue. If you don't have 3D models, which a lot of companies don't, many do, there's a couple things that can happen. One, if I'm working with somebody, let's say a manufacturer like Bosch, right? They make their own stoves and kitchen things and whatever, and so they have CAD files of all of their products. And if they have a CAD file, they can output a 3D file, or they can send us their CAD file and we'll convert it into a 3D file and then, compress it down to be able to work on mobile. Those CAD files are usually, 1.5 gigabytes, and it's got to be 3 megabytes for it to work for what we're doing. So that's part of our proprietary technology, actually, is being able to compress those down. So if you have a CAD file, great, we can do that. But if you just have shirts and swag like that, we actually can send. So we have a network of hundreds of 3D modelers out there just all over the world, right? Bangladesh and Russia and everywhere in between. And we can send them actually just pictures of your products. And within a few hours, they'll send back a 3D model that they've basically built from scratch. And it works really well. The cost is quite inexpensive for the brand. It can be anywhere from $50 for a model up to $300 for a model if it's a really, really complex, piece of machinery or something. But we try to keep that cost as low as possible because it's a barrier. We don't want to, our business is not creating 3D models, right? Our business is hosting and enabling AR technology through a SaaS product, right? And so, yeah, we could charge a bunch for 3D model creation. We actually are the cheapest out there. A lot of companies that do this charge $200 to $1,000 for 3D modeling, and that's how they make their money. We're just like, no, we're going to basically do that at cost, and we're going to because think about it. If we're a 3D modeling business, that's just a services business, right? We're going to get a half to 2x multiple when we sell, and if anybody wants to buy us. But if we sell $100,000 of 3D modeling services in a month, okay, cool. So we added almost no value to our company, right? Maybe 50,000 to 100,000. But if I sell $100,000 of hosting products that's recurring, okay, on an annual basis, just $100,000 on an annual basis, that adds $1 million of value to my company, right? And so we've just said, let's remove every barrier possible to do that. So you can do that. You can also actually have them physically scanned, either wearing them. You can go into a booth and have the scanner just scan you real quick, and it outputs a 3D model. There's booths called Shapeify booths that are there's probably about 10 of them in the U.S. and you can go to Vegas and do it, in New York and California. And we've thought about opening one here, but again, we've just said, you know what, we're not a 3D modeling company. That's not what we do. So we haven't gotten into that. And then you can buy scanners from a company called Artec. They're the best of the best. They're about $25,000 though, where you can physically scan a product and get a very, very photorealistic, version of that product. So there's a lot of different ways. We've found the cheapest and fastest way is to build it from scratch, but that will get better. I actually, if you just Google, iPhone 11 leaks, you try to find cool information about it. They're taking, if you look at the back of your iPhone right now, or an iPhone 10 or a 10s, there's 2 cameras. The new one actually adds a third one, and it's been rumored that is a very, very capable depth sensor. And we believe, and other people do as well, that depth sensor will be usable to allow your phone to start becoming a 3D scanner, which will really accelerate. Now all of a sudden, we don't have to just deal with the overstocks and big, huge retailers who have massive budgets to do this. You could be selling one of your old Nintendos on eBay, and scan it really quick and enable that on eBay to work.
How far ahead do you have to try to think with the speed of technology? I have to think that sometime in the next decade, I'm not even holding a phone like this.
Yep.
So what does that look like for the way that you guys think about AR and e-commerce?
Yeah, that's actually at the center of our thinking, is what is next. And the brands and we're actually doing that on behalf of our brands. We don't want them to have to be thinking about that, right? When Apple glasses come out next year, which is the best rumor, right? People believe that Apple's going to come out. And when Apple does that, it's going to make it go mainstream, right? They come out with a watch, everyone buys it. They've got that's just how Apple works, right? So they're going to come out with glasses, and then people are going to expect to be able to see content, right? And every single one of our brands, one of our customers, is automatically upgraded. We built our system in a way so that if we improve the system to now support Apple glasses, then every single model, every single customer that we host and enable will automatically be ready for that next thing. They'll be ready for Magic Leap. They'll be ready for Google Glass if they come out again and actually are successful this time. But the future is wearables with augmented reality, and it's going to be glasses first, I'm sure, eventually, and we might be quite a ways off just because of the amount of computing power you need. Contacts will get there eventually. But AR is going to become a very integral part of almost every activity that you do today. In 10 years from now, almost everything you do will be enabled in part or assisted by augmented reality.
So you have Magic Leap raising like literally billions of dollars. And now you guys seem to potentially be out of the woods of this like project-based fee. You have recurring revenue. You might have, it sounds like you have more predictable revenue. And you said you're looking at raising an A. So how do you think about that fundraise? Are you trying to raise a big A that's just going to give you the jet fuel plus your revenue to not have to raise again? Or are you trying to just get to the next step and then you'll have to raise a B and then a C?
Yeah, I think both are viable paths. I don't think I've decided on one or the other. Quite frankly, we're making a lot of money right now and it's driving our growth, organically, which is great. We don't have to raise money. By the way, that's the best time to raise money. Right? When I could sit there in front of the VC and be like, look, if you want in, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, come join and help us accelerate that. But if you don't want to, that's fine too. Right? When I'm in a cash crunch, like I was last summer, and that's the worst time to raise money, right? That's when, and I'm grateful actually to my investors that said, hey, yeah, we're going to give you a little bit of a down round, but we're only going to give you like $100,000. So we're not going to take very much, right? So it actually didn't hurt the company, didn't hurt the cap table that much, but they just said, look, we're going to give you a tiny rope. If you can prove it with this, 4 or 5 months of runway, then you're off to the races. You'll be able to do it. And so our goal, we had to get to 20,000 in recurring revenue before we ran out of money. And we did it.
Recurring software revenue or recurring revenue in general?
Recurring SaaS. Yeah, exactly. So we did that within that 5-month time period from when they gave us that money. And now we're much, much higher than that. But yeah, as far as what we want to do, our competitors are a good solid year behind us. And maybe even a little bit more than that for some of them. But where we have really, really done well is in obtaining the customers, right? We have the big names, the biggest of the biggest in retail, right? We are working with people I can't really talk about, but all the big guys are kind of in our pocket. And as long as we just don't screw it up, a lot of those accounts are going to become worth $5 million annually, right? Which is a $50 million add to our valuation at a 10x multiple. And so good luck to our competitors catching us, right? If they go out and raise $30 million right now, I still think they'd have a really hard time coming and catching us. Now, I do think, now think about this, our product is applicable to every single e-commerce company in the world that sells a physical product. That's a market that's so big that we will never be done. I think there's room for 4 of us, right? And probably 2 big winners, will happen. And then there might be 30 other little companies that do it to certain degrees and maybe focus on niche products like trying on a ring or something, and hand tracking, so people can potentially try to take some certain angle. But for general merchandise and things like that, Seek is definitely the one to beat now.
When you're talking to all of these customers, you mentioned earlier that a lot of your products were kind of coming out of this experimental budget. It was Pokemon Go, and they were just like trying something. What budget is this like product now coming out of? When you go to sell, is this coming out of, like, where is this coming from at the business?
It's going to be user experience, right? There's definitely a budget for UX. It's typically part of the website budget. It starts usually with the marketing department, right? They want, to increase conversion rates. That's the marketing department's, job in part, right? It kind of depends on the company, but it's the marketing department / the IT department working together to, drive more people to the site and then convert more people while they're on the site. And so, yeah, we've jumped into mainstream budgets here, which is really, really cool. It was really fun. I was on a call with Vans actually about a month ago, and they said, hey, we love this. This is now a standard. So let's just get this. Let's sign a multi-year agreement here. Let's just make this, this is how we do things now. And now let's talk about some cool project-based stuff. What are some cool campaigns we can do, and custom development, and making things sparkle more, I guess, right? But as far as hey, augmented reality is now a way to shop. That's starting to happen in the minds of some of our customers and some of these big brands now that kind of all the barriers are gone, right? Everybody's got a phone now that's capable. They've got iOS 12, they've got AR Kit on Google, you've got AR Core, and you've got these things that are now embedded as part of the ecosystem that we can leverage and then add some of our own stuff on top of it to make it a smooth, easy experience that a couple years from now you're gonna be like, oh yeah, why doesn't this have an AR object, right? I mean, just like when you go to a product page and you expect to see a picture, or maybe definitely a picture and maybe a video if you're lucky, you're going to say, oh, I really wish this had an AR button. Why don't I want to see, I'm shopping for this new mountain bike. I'd love to see how big it really is, and I'd love to look down at these features. So I think it's becoming a standard, and as it becomes a standard, it leaves that experimental budget and then just becomes something that they forget about. They install it and like, oh yeah, we just renew that every year.
I would expect that these clients typically are long sales cycles type companies. How does that look for you guys? Is it still a long sales cycle, or are they motivated enough to move it pretty quick?
Tough, man. That's the hard part about B2B SaaS when you're going after the big enterprise, right? Part of me wishes we were going after small businesses and just writing those $5,000 checks for the year because they can do it, that week, right? And provide some cash really quickly. And when we're closing the $500,000 a year deal or the $150,000 a year deal, yeah, it takes forever, man. It's, you got to go through security approvals and becoming a vendor for Nestle. It was like a 47-page document, man. It took forever to fill that stuff out. And then they have to process it and whatever. I mean, it's 3 months to get onboarded as a vendor. And then in their terms, they're like, oh yeah, we pay net 90. I'm like, no way, man. Let's change that to net 30 right now. And, so I'm doing everything I can to speed things up, right? And we're landing huge clients, but we have to wait sometimes 5 or 6 months to see that money from the time they say, yes, we're in. And meanwhile, we want to solidify that sale and we want to use that customer as a flagship, as a demo. And so we're like, look, let's just install it now, right? We'll get the paperwork done. We get it. You can pay us when you can pay us. But let's get it going as fast as we can so that we can, box out, do that land grab. So it's really tough because we're delivering with no cash. Luckily, I feel like I was just talking to my COO last week and I'm like, I think we're out of the woods. We have enough money that we can deliver for months and for the rest of the year through next year to and without receiving any more money, and we're good. We're not going to run out, and we have tons of new clients coming on and lots of receivables and stuff, but we can survive now. But remember, we went from this $20,000 a month budget to wait, we got to hire more people to handle all these things, and we're not spending $20,000 a month anymore. We're a lot bigger now. But when can we hire those people? How fast can we get that? And we started getting into doing some invoice factoring and getting creative with pulling that capital in faster. I mean, my dad is actually one of our investors. So he was one of our very first ones, and we had a contract that we were down to, again, this was in like January or something, and we were down to like $11,000 or something. We needed, I think, 35,000 or something. It was like, Dad, can you write me a check for $35,000? I'll pay you back in 2 weeks. We've got a big, contract coming in that'll easily cover this. And he's like, show me the contract. And he was like, all right, here you go. So did that. And, so we've made it work, but we've gotten past the hard times and learned an insane amount through all that as well.
How does pricing work?
Yeah. So pricing is based on, it's almost, AWS-ish, right? It's kind of usage based. So if somebody's, doing 50,000 AR views in a month, then they might be, $1,000 a month. If they're doing, 10 million views a month, then they might be $10,000 a month. So it really comes down to, it's about 1 to 2 cents per view that we charge, and it's done on a tier-based thing. And we usually sign a contract for a year and agree to a set price based on what we estimate it will be, and then we'll adjust as the second year comes around. And then there's usually a setup fee, and then if there are any 3D model creation needs, then we'll bill them for that as well.
Are you guys? You mentioned some cash kind of issues. You did some invoice factoring. Are you guys cash flow positive right now? Are you profitable right now? Both or neither? Because you mentioned a lot about cash.
Yeah. We're, like I was saying, we kind of just hit that point where we're comfortable. We're kind of trying to operate at break even, right? We don't want to be profitable right now, and we've still raised just a little bit of money a few $100,000 to just give us a little bit more speed, right? Just to kind of bridge us to that bigger Series A. But yeah, if we were to just slow down and say, all right, let's just maintain our clients, we're cash flow positive for sure. We could have a great business here, but we're in growth mode, and so we're reinvesting. And every time we're like, hey, we've got an extra $10,000 a month. Let's get another great developer, and let's bring on a new sales guy or an account manager or something like that.
So, Jon, I want to go back into that moment in time when you had to make some tough decisions and let people go, and some people stayed on without being paid. I had been a part of a company where we had a similar event happen. And similarly, in like the year leading up to that, we circled around to a few different products. And I saw the toll that it took on some people, not knowing what are we building? Who are we building it for? This thing I just spent months building is now shelved. Can you talk about what that was like internally and what that felt like for the team and the ones that stuck around? Why did they have that conviction?
I think it came down to, and I'm going to say this as humbly as possible, but they trusted the leaders. They had seen us do some really, really good things. And I'm not talking about just me, but me and my CTO, Thane, who came up with this idea that really has taken us to a whole new world. And my co-founder, Mike. It wasn't the first time that we had gotten low on cash. We'd been down to $10,000, and then, hey, we raised $400,000, and now we're good for another 8 months, or whatever, right? So we had been there a couple times before, and we basically just said, hey guys, look, we're pretty dang sure we're going to get this done. But it was about 6 weeks with no pay, right? 3 paychecks. That's tough, right? When you miss a rent payment maybe, or a car payment or things like that. And we even had a few people come to us and say, hey, I know I'm supposed to get paid $5,000 a month, but I need $1,376, $1,376 and 41 cents, like down to the penny. Can you please help us out? And we just said, hey, we only have $6,000 left, but we had a few people who were like, okay, we'll write the check, and we gave it to them. They knew that we weren't going to let them. We cared about them, right? We cared about the employees, and even just those little things where, hey, oh my gosh, I got to pay my health insurance. It's $150. Can I get that? Absolutely. Let's take care of your health insurance so you don't lapse on that. And then some of the people said, hey, you know what, I gotta get another job. And some of them did, right? And we talked to those people, and that was a very good thing, but they couldn't afford to miss a month, or miss 2 months. But all the core people stayed, and quite frankly, they deserve everything, man. I gave them all more equity, right? I said, look, you guys are amazing, and you're the ones making this possible. I just call people up and tell them to buy our stuff. You guys are creating it, making this possible, so we'll do anything for you. And since then, and I think we had a track record of having done this in the past where we said, hey guys, we need to crunch down, and we're going to lower your pay to 40,000. Then we're going to take it back here. And we had delivered on that in the past. And since we've, taken these guys down to 3,000 a month, we've got some of them back up to, 8,000 a month. And, they've seen us do that. And I'm just like, hey, bad news. I just, raised your salary by 20 grand, and, I do everything that I can to just let them know that, they're the reason we're being successful. And I know that money only goes so far. You can give them more equity, you can give them more pay, but being right there with them also, I think, makes a big difference. I'm showing up to the office at, 6 a.m. sometimes, and I'm there before them. I'm there after them, before they go home. And I'm sorry. And the seeing, I think them seeing the commitment of their leaders as well made a big difference. And we were just all in it together. There was a very, very strong bond, and we all just had this big vision and just a feeling that, hey, this one's going to work, right? And then we started landing some of these big clients from these shows, and now everybody's just pumped, right? And we couldn't get them away if we wanted to. Everyone's in a really, really good place right now.
What about those you had to let go? That's a tough side of things as well, and I'm guessing it's your first time laying off a significant amount of people. How did you handle that?
Yeah, that's tough, man. I hate nobody likes giving bad news. Right? Everyone likes being the good news guy. When you're getting the raise, you're hiring somebody, and I probably do that to a fault, right? I'm a sales guy. I say things that people want to hear, and I try to get people to get on my side. But some of the people I sat down and just said, look, you're not being fired for cause. You're amazing, right? Here's what we're doing. You're very, very aware of every situation. That's part of what we did too, I think, that helped. It wasn't a surprise to them. They knew our cash position. They knew what we were doing. They knew the pivots we were having, and we would bring all 25 people in and say, "All right, guys, here's where we are. Who has ideas? Let's talk through this." And when the company decided to go this B2B SaaS, away from the consumer facing side of things, our 8 people that were doing social media and all kinds of stuff and things related to those consumers had to know, hey, this might be kind of the end here, right? And one of those guys was that dad of those 2 sons that won that treasure, right? And I just sat him down and said, "Andrew, I love you like a brother, man, and I will hire you back in a heartbeat as soon as we can, if we can find the right place and get the right capital in place." And he ended up moving to Florida, and he's doing great now. But I think everybody knew that we cared about them, and they knew that we would make good on paying them their paychecks that we missed, as well as delivering on the equity that we made sure everybody had a little piece of, so that they could, come away with something.
Well, it's a great story, and we're looking forward to following Seek and seeing your future here. If listeners of the show want to learn more about Seek or you, where should they go?
Yeah, definitely. And feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Just Jon Cheney, Jon is how you spell my name. Last name is Cheney, just like Dick, Uncle Dick. And then you go to our website, seekxr.com, SeekXR.com. People always ask, why are we Seek? But it's because of where we started, right? Seeking out the treasures and stuff like that. And the name's good. It's a good domain. So that's what we've stuck with. But seekxr.com, add me on LinkedIn, connect. Feel free to send me an email, john@seekxr.com. Always happy to help in whatever way I can.
All right, Eric, we just spoke with Jon Cheney of Seek in Lehi, Utah. Fun journey, fun conversation. Where do you want to start today? You want to talk opportunity? You want to talk founder?
I don't know. Where did you come from? Where did you go? I think we start with where you came from here, because man, what a up and down kind of experience.
What a callback.
You like that callback to Cotton Eye Joe, by the way?
Wow. Yeah, up and down experience. And like I said at the very end of that interview, I had been a part of a larger team that went through a similar crucible moment and seems to have also come out the other side, but it was rough. And I can imagine for him how hard that was for him to go through that decision and actually go through the actions of making that change. But to his words, sounds like they may be out of the woods for the time being, which is also got to be a great place to be.
But that's just one of the moments. I feel like there were so many moments. There was this, I'm projecting here, but you have this treasure hunting thing that he could have done. And he said probably could have made a couple $1 million doing a lifestyle business. And you go and do this other thing, and then it looks like it's going to do great, and then looks like it's going to fail. Then you do another thing, and it looks like it's going to do great, and then you lay off more than half of your people. That kind of roller coaster, I don't think we've really had that dragged out as much on Upside of the actual roller coaster of continuous pivots and changes and finally finding real product market fit, not hype.
And it's different too, because most of the time when people are pivoting around and really circling and trying to figure out what's going to stick, they're not doing that while also signing $100,000 contracts with clients. In fact, they're usually just struggling to get any business at all. So it's very interesting to hear a story of somebody that was circling around because he was following a significant amount of money, and it wasn't that it wasn't working in some ways. It was that this may not be a sustainable model for the company long term.
Yeah, it's like if you put out a really bad tweet, which you're known to do, and somehow Russian bots just were like, oh yeah, this is the tweet we're going to attack with likes. And all of a sudden you got 100,000 likes on your tweet. You'd be like, oh, that was a great tweet. I should do this same tweet. And then you did it again and you got 3 likes.
What a weird analogy that was mostly just a veiled attack on my Twitter.
Look, your Twitter's great.
Something that I think is understated, I'm going to go into Jon as a founder here a little bit. It's clear that he empowers his people to do a lot of the business. While he may be a product visionary, he gave a lot of the credit for this current product to one of his co-founders. But what you heard him saying in the interview so many times was selling and raising money. He's really embracing the CEO role of making sure there's money in the bank, selling customers, and it sounds like really trusting his team to create the product, market the product, and implement the sale once it's made.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I came away very impressed with Jon as a leader. I think that he had to make tough decisions multiple times, made them, and always kept his team first and foremost. I mean, giving them extra equity, like that's just a representation of what he is like as a leader.
He also falls into the camp of a founder who is looking for and at opportunity for the company. You know, we recently had an episode with Eric Shashua of Zive, and he had like totally contrived his business concept. And Jon here meandered his way into it. But, you know, if you would have asked Jon 4 years ago, 5 years ago, are you obsessed with AR and e-commerce? He would have said no. He was trying to have fun and do treasure hunting. And yet here we are finding an opportunity and thinking about what is not the several $1 million business that we could have done with like Treasure Canyon, and what is the large business that we can build now in a massive market. I think this market falls in your massive market size bucket, Eric.
We'll get to massive market and market sizing in a second. One last thing on Jon as a founder from me was something that was a little more nuanced, and it was just the way he thought about the business, in that he's like, okay, we could do this 3D model making, but what does that valuation get us? It gets us a half of revenue. So that is actually like value decretive to focus resources there. Whereas I can focus resources on what is now, like he said, 10x, but if you look at Publix, it's like median 9x on B2B SaaS sales. So 10x, if I get one contract for $10,000, that's worth $100,000 versus one contract for $10,000 that's worth $5,000 to $10,000. So I just love that everything he's thinking about is, okay, how do I optimize the company's resources to get the highest valuation possible?
I don't believe that decretive is a word.
Jay, I'm known for making up words. So
you're going to attack my Twitter, and then you're going to use the word decretive.
Accretive, decretive.
I don't know about that. All right, well, I won't dig into that too much. Let's dig into the market size and the opportunity size here, which I kind of led off by saying this is probably in our massive bucket if you're looking at e-commerce. But that's just looking at, you know, the total market size. What we're really looking at here is this marketing and user experience budget that Jon was mentioning in context of that giant market size. So, Eric, you're the math guy. I'll put you on the spot. How do you think about this market?
Look, it's too big. You want a math answer? It's too big. Here's how the pricing works out. 1 to 2 cents per view. I mean, how many products have you looked at just anecdotally that you haven't bought? Think about just people browsing online shopping. That's so many views. I mean, it's massive. I don't know. Like, it's e-commerce. It's the biggest piece. Well, not e-commerce, but commerce in general is the biggest piece of the consumption side of GDP. So yeah, it's huge. I mean, I don't know. Like, you want me to come up with an actual number for TAM? I don't think that it's that valuable.
Well, think about what I want to dig into a little bit more. You know, on the website, they have a few different plans published that are from $99 per month up to $999 per month. And then they have kind of an enterprise talk to us version. And Jon mentioned that some of those customers were worth about $120,000 in revenue each. So the question is, you know, how many customers are able to pay that $120,000 in revenue per year each? Is it defensible? This is the type of stuff I want to talk about. Is it defensible? How hard would it be to rip it out and go to a competitor that could overtake them? Could a competitor overtake them?
Yeah, let's look at moats a little bit. Like, once you get someone signed up, what's the appetite or ability to switch? It sounds like he said that integration was a competitive advantage, but I didn't really dig deeper on that answer, because when he said that we don't do 3D modeling, it's like they don't have a proprietary claim to the 3D models they develop. So you could just go get them made anywhere and bring them on and then bring in the SeekView platform. So I don't know how deep that moat runs with, okay, once I'm in a company, all the integration's done or not. That's definitely a bit of a shadow.
And I'll take him on his word that they're a year plus ahead on the technology aspect of being able to do this from a web-based system and cross-platform. Let's say that's true. My bigger question is exactly kind of what I asked. Long term, in the next 10 years, I think if you're betting on Seek, which could be a good bet because you're saying huge market-leading technology, already working with well-known brands, the bigger question to me is, how will this market continue to change? And will Seek continue to be the market leader as the way we move devices and the way we interact with commerce in the world around us as that changes? I think that's the bet you have to make on Seek if you're betting on Seek.
I like that. I think that the idea of the tools that he talked about, I think that was hinting at some things that we didn't really get to see. So maybe Seek has some deeper competitive advantages there as well, with Seek Studio, which is now enterprise facing, that maybe we just didn't hear too much about in this interview. I want to bring up one quick thing about their growth, which I find compelling. So there's this thing in B2B SaaS called the Rule of 40. Are you familiar with that, Jay?
I'm not.
So the Rule of 40 is supposed to be this back of the napkin shorthand math to see, okay, is a B2B SaaS company doing well, or are they kind of below this bar or benchmark? And what it is you take the growth percentage of MRR and you add in the profitability margin. So let's say we had a company that was growing 40% every year and was break even. That's meeting the Rule of 40 plus 0. So we got some information from Jon that said that they were growing 30% per month since September of 2015, and that they're operating at about break even. That means they're a little bit underneath that Rule of 40. It's not the worst ratio ever. There's companies that are doing 20 and negative 10. So, but it's just a good gut check to see, okay, how fast is this thing really growing?
Interesting. How do you factor in his decision to not, like he said, he wanted to operate at break even. So if somebody is willfully operating at break even and that is putting them below the Rule of 40, is that something that is factored into the Rule of 40, or is that kind of an asterisk that we have to put on that?
I think it's a trade-off. I think that the whole part of the Rule of 40 is it's a trade-off. So if, as you decrease profitability, you should be increasing growth. So if you are at 10% profitable, you can be at 30% growth. Again, this is a rough kind of thing, and he might be at 34 or 36%, and he just said 30%. Again, we don't have all the numbers, but it's not like it's super far off. So the idea is if you're at 50% growth, you can work at negative 10 margins because that's just a healthy SaaS equilibrium, B2B SaaS.
Interesting. Never heard of that. Going to keep that in mind for future B2B SaaS companies. He said that this kind of crucible moment where they went whole hog into the e-commerce AR direction was just over a year ago. And with the sales cycles that we talked about at the end of this episode, seems like they're probably primed for a much higher growth rate in the coming months, the coming year. It's crazy to me, the number of experiments and products that they built between 2016, really 2017, and now. His tech team has to be extremely talented in a type of technology that is not there's not a ton of people operating in Unity.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Any shadows stick out for you, Jay, before we get into our final question?
I think I kind of spoke to my shadow. I do think it is just, this market is huge, yes. This technology is still new and relatively unproven. There is a huge increase in conversion that they're showing right now when you add AR to things. But what about when AR becomes table stakes, when it becomes ubiquitous? How does that change the value of this software? How does it change these contract sizes? Does it become commoditized? Does there become a Seek competitor that does this for a fraction of the cost because it becomes commoditized? It really is just, you have to make a bet. And I'm not saying I'm not making this bet, but I'm saying you have to make a bet on the future innovation in this space, I think, with whichever horse in this race you would want to back.
And one stat that I wanted to just touch on real quick from my end that I really liked, so was this 150%. This is their studies say that they're seeing 150% increase in sales for customers, which is, there are a lot of studies out there that he said were 30, 50% when they're using AR. So, I mean, that's a huge stat. That's a very large change in sales, in terms of your conversion rate. So I would just want to, I guess it's kind of a shadow because I'm so impressed with the stat. I would just want to see how that buffers out over the course of another year, 2 years. Are they still seeing that kind of metric, or does it come back down to some sort of statistical equilibrium and they just have a anomaly on their hands right now?
So 6 to 18 months, what are you looking for from Seek?
There were some hints throughout the interview of some conversations that were being had, and I'd like to see if those conversations turn into partnerships or customers. He mentioned a really cool partnership with Google. I'd like to hear more about that. I'm guessing if there's something with Google, then that means there's something with a few other tech companies. So I want to see more on the partnerships and customer side. I think that those are going to drive market leadership even further than that 1 year gap. Because once you're the first one in, it's going to be very hard for someone who's a year behind you to kind of break down the door.
Yeah, and besides the obvious, increasing revenue, increasing number of customers that I always say, what I'd be looking for.
You sure you don't want to go with revenue? Are you positive?
I did just by saying it just now. What I want to see is a demo or a plan of what this looks like in a pure wearable sense, whether it's Apple glasses, Google Glass, Magic Leap. I think a year, 18 months from now, we should have something there. All right, guys, we're excited to hear what you think about this episode. You can tweet at us at UpsideFM or email us hello@upside.fm. We'll talk to you next week. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's guest, so shoot us an email at hello@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at UpsideFM. We'll be back here next week at the same time talking to another founder in our quest to find upside outside of Silicon Valley. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Eric and I decided there were a couple things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast, and so here we go. Eric Hornung and Jay Klaus are the founding parties of the Upside podcast. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interest in the companies which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Duff & Phelps LLC and its affiliates, Unreal Collective LLC and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Never mind, bro, that can't be matched. I'm lighting it on fire, used to run victory laps, and still I'm not even tired. It's all about the timing, yeah, that's what they say. Well, I'ma keep on rhyming, find a way and get it done.